So, without further ado, let the talk begin. Our first speaker is Timothée Paré. Tim holds PhD in economics from the Center for Development Studies and Research in the University of Clermont, Auvergne, France, and the Stockholm Resilience Center, Stockholm University, Sweden. Titled The Political Economy of Degrowth, his dissertation explores the economic implications of the idea of degrowth. The floor is yours, Tim.
Thank you very much, Katja. So how to achieve degrowth? A small question. But my answer would be the key, the clock, and the coin, changing property, work, and money. These are the three fundamental institutions of capitalism, and so these are the three leverage points to escape capitalism. So let's dive in, get a slide. First one, inverted, property. So property defines what is a resource and who should be entitled to have it. All the written rules and informal customs we follow when we behave toward resources, this is property. And without property, there would be no economy. But when I say property though, I'm sure you're thinking private property. This is not a random association. We think private property because it has become the prevailing way of organizing ownership. But private property is only one out of 4 types of ownership. Private property owned by individual agent, like a person or a firm, think toothbrush. Common property owned by community, like an urban garden. Public property owned by the state, like a national park, or uncontrolled property owned by no one. Think about most forms of pollutions. What matters here is that property rules are never predetermined. They are social agreements, and so they can change in time and space. When workers run a recuperated factory, they socialize a private asset. When you pay taxes, the state nationalizes some of your private wealth. When corporations sell scientific articles, they privatize communal wealth. And when you throw away trash in the sea, you renounce property rights. Now, what I want to argue is that degrowth requires 3 changes concerning property. 1, redistribution of existing wealth. 2, distribution of future wealth. And 3, pre-distribution of potential wealth. Let me explain. The first problem is about private possessions. Some have a lot of it, others none. Classic solution, redistribute. There should be a minimum and maximum thresholds on the earning of income and the accumulation of wealth. Making sure no one has too much, for example, by capping income at 10 times the minimum wage and taxing personal wealth and inheritance, and ensuring that everyone has enough via universal basic income, universal basic services, or a mix of the two. The second problem concerns businesses, or rather, like, let's say production in general. When wealth is created through production, it is not fairly distributed among participants if most of it goes to shareholders. To change this, we need to do away with the profit motive, for example, by limiting the ability of companies to pay dividends to shareholders. And we also need to democratize governance, like it's being done in cooperatives, where employees can decide how much they should be paid. The third problem about pre-distribution concerns the allocation of property rights regarding certain assets such as land, natural resources, or knowledge. Here, the goal is to prevent both economic rents over the benefits, for example, abusive patenting, and the outsourcing of the burdens. So for example, the negative property in the form of pollution today given to the poorest. This involves granting intrinsic rights to nature, for example, by having ecocide laws, managing resources as commons via, for example, seeds banks and peer-to-peer education, banning certain polluting activities like synthetic pesticides, capping others like carbon emissions, and taxing whatever you cannot ban and cap, for example, plastic. So to recap about property, transforming property means redistributing the wealth that already exists, ensuring a fair split of the wealth that is being created, and preventing the private appropriation of social and environmental wealth. So now let's move to work. And the work question starts with this question. So what do you do? This question we ask all the time is a very deep question. For example, am I working right now talking to you? Capitalism says no, because I'm not being paid and I'm not generating any monetary wealth. But that's the problem. We prioritize commodity producing wage labor over all other activities. Degrowth requires a triple transformation of work concerning its quantity, how much time do we spend working, quality, what do we do when we work, and discourse, how do we feel about work as a society. Let's start with quantity. I don't like the term work time reduction. To be precise, we should speak of employment time reduction, because this reduction must be selective, not an overall reduction of human activity, that would be absurd, but liberating time for what we think matters. So maybe we should not talk of work time reduction, but of free time expansion. Reducing time spent in employment would be desirable for a number of reasons. I mean, think about sharing available jobs and reducing unemployment, or reducing resource use because GDP correlates with environmental pressures. And most importantly, to liberate time. And that's an important point. We cannot organize a new economy if we're all too busy working 50 hours a week, maintaining the old economy. Number two, degrowth should struggle for less work, but also for better work. Let's think about this. What kind of product, subject, and social relations do we want to create in the workplace? This has to do with the content of work. I would say that work should not detract from the common good. It should be socially useful and ecologically sustainable. And that undesirable work, the work that nobody wants to do, should be fairly distributed. But it also has to do with the form of work. Work should never degrade dignity. Work should be secure and fairly remunerated. And work should be democratic. Employees should exercise individual and collective autonomy in the workplace. Third aspect, more important than less work and better work, we need to redefine what work is and the role it should play in society. This is the idea of post-work. Let us stop worshipping commodity producing wage labor and start evaluating human activities outside of the realm of economic rationality. And this implies a number of things. First of all, emancipating from the work ethic, the one that says that working is inherently good, regardless of what the work is about. Work should be concrete. It should satisfy needs, not detract from them. Ultimately, the purpose of economic organization is to economize time, which means liberating as many hours as possible from activities you're not too excited about for activities you're excited about. So this is not only about work, it's about time. Post-work means to be able to choose the quantity and quality of work, and by doing so to regain autonomy over the use of our time. It is a politicization of time. In summary, transforming work means working less, work time reduction, in better condition, decent work, and reducing the importance of work in society. That's post-work. Final institution, money. So money, the question with money is, should we transform money or abolish money? I say we should transform money in order to abolish money making. Modern money is problematic for three reasons. It takes the form of a general purpose currency. It is created as debt by for-profit commercial banks, and it circulates pretty much unregulated in a for-profit financial environment. So let's tackle the first problem. The problem with general purpose money is that it allows commensurability between things that should not be otherwise connected. Look at this bill. This bill is both 1/3 of a barrel of oil, 3 kilos of tomatoes, and 74 minutes of labor at French minimum wage. We cannot have an economy that is diverse with only one single measure of value. Diverse economies need diverse monies in the plural. So imagine a monetary ecosystem like a food chain with local exchange trading schemes and time banks at the village level, convertible local currencies at the regional level, a national currency, and maybe even supranational currencies. Some of these currencies can be backed by time, other by carbon, other by nothing. But they should all be democratically designed and managed by the users. Monetary diversity is a way to re-embed economic activities in social and moral values as to make sure that purchasing power doesn't turn into pulverizing power. For example, alternative currency can relocalize production and consumption and stimulate non-market activities. They can be used to organize forms of reciprocity, redistribution, and sharing that can substitute to market exchange, like this time currency in Japan that is used for elderly care and that we wish we had during the pandemic in France. Second problem, money is controlled by commercial banks. So we need to decommodify money, no way around that. Money is commodified because it is created by private banks following a profit motive. This ceases to be so in a local currency where money is created by an association with a mission of social benefit. Same case for a sovereign money system. It is a central bank-like institution that decides politically of the quantity of money to be issued. Money becomes a public good open to democratic deliberation. Final problem. There is too much money in the financial sector. It's not surprising. In a profit-driven market economy, money finds the most lucrative opportunities. Today, that's in finance. Like a giant magnet, finance is attracting money, which is then not available to invest in less profitable sectors like care activities, education, and clean energy. The issue is that the financial sphere is disproportionately large and fast, and so it destabilizes the rest of the economy. The goal then is to slow down and shrink down finance, slow and small finance. The financial sphere must remain in par with the real economy, itself in par with supporting social and ecological systems, like a tree, where branches should be sized to the trunk and the roots. So let's recap. Transforming money means challenging the hegemony of general purpose money in favor of monetary diversity. Taking back control over monetary governance and shrinking down and slowing down the financial sphere. So these are the changes I envision to achieve degrowth, but maybe I should wrap up here. What I've been trying to argue in this presentation is that degrowth is not only a slogan, a social movement, or even a worldview. It could also be an alternative economic system. For this, we need to challenge three hegemonies: private property, wage labor, general purpose money. These are the three that came to my mind, but I'm sure there are many more. What matters is to keep in mind that the economy is an invention. It is a game we play with rules we make. It's nothing but a bundle of institutions. Institutions that have been socially constructed and can therefore be socially deconstructed and reconstructed at will. And if the economy is political, then it means that we are all economists. And my message to you, my fellow economist, is this: time to stop predicting the future of the economy and start inventing the economy of the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim. That was excellent. And I had a little bit of a read through your PhD dissertation, which, by the way, is also absolutely excellent. So everyone should read it. It's a good 800 pages. So it's a little weekend, weekend reading exercise. So there you quote the famous Emma Goldman quote, or you slightly adapted, and you say, like, if I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your economy. And I, for one, would definitely want to be part of your economy and dance to those tunes of a new story of what it means to be human, ultimately. So thank